Jacksonville Jaguars fans, welcome in to Duval Daily presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here Monday, June 9th. As y'all know, we have 3 days of mandatory minicamp coming up this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday, I believe, is the day that is open to the public. But in order to attend, you do have to sign up at the Jaguars website, go to their event page. I'm not sure if tickets are still available, whatever it may be. It is free, but you do have to sign up. So keep that in mind if you're trying to get out there. You can go check that out. Potentially, I will be out there all 3 days. Very excited to be out there for mandatory minicamp. Things ramp up a tad bit at mandatory minicamp, depending on the team, depending on the organization, the way they're doing things. Like the Jaguars under Doug Peterson, mandatory minicamp was typically just an extension of rookie minicamp, because as long as there was good attendance and participation during the voluntary portion of the offseason, which some players view as certainly not voluntary, probably most players, but Dewey Wingard kind of said the thing that most people don't say out loud, which is, there's nothing that's voluntary. Said that in an interview last week with one of the local stations. But the Jaguars in the past have given veterans off for mandatory minicamp for the most part under Doug Peterson. And so that will probably be a difference here with this new regime. You probably will, I imagine. I haven't heard anything about veterans not being out there. So I think you're going to see the veterans at mandatory minicamp under this new regime, trying to, again, make the most of every opportunity they have to meet, to get out on the practice field, to learn, and try to be the best they can be in 2025. I don't think this is an organization, a coaching staff, a front office that believes that they're in a rebuilding situation. I think that they're trying to win right now. I don't think they're viewing 2025 as let's get our feet wet and then really push our chips in 2026. With the amount of veterans they've added, with the amount of draft capital they invested in this class, specifically in Travis Hunter, I don't think the Jaguars believe they are in a real rebuilding situation. I think that they are going into 2025 trying to win their division, trying to be the best they possibly can be, and trying to compete at the highest level. I don't think that this is viewed as a getting your feet wet type of year, as I mentioned. So with that in mind, we're going to look at another list. I know y'all love it, but this is kind of interesting in my opinion. PFF has an article and it is premium content. I'll share the link for those of y'all who are PFF subscribers. But NFL Betting 2025 Market Implied Power Rankings, Strength of Schedule, and more. And so this is based on betting markets. I think it's actually a really cool thing that PFF put together. And so they've basically ranked every team based on market implications. And we'll roll through it. Philadelphia at 1, Ravens at 2, Bills at 3, Chiefs at 4, Lions at 5, Packers at 6, Commanders at 7, Bengals 8, Rams 9, Chargers 10. Not a whole lot of really surprising things here. I think the Chiefs should probably be at number 1 in the AFC. They come in at 3 here. I think that will end up being incorrect. Outside of that, I think the Bengals might be a little high, but anytime you have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, you've got a shot. Rams and Chargers might be a little high. You get into the 11 through 20, and you got the 49ers, Texans, Jaguars, AFC South rivals, Texans, who are apparently signing Nick Chubb. That's an interesting decision at this point. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 13, Minnesota Vikings at 14, Denver Broncos at 15, Steelers at 16, Cardinals at 17, Cowboys at 18, Bears at 19, Dolphins at 20. Not a whole lot super surprising here. I think you could make the argument that the Vikings should be higher. I think you could make the argument the 49ers should be higher. What's really interesting here, and we'll get to it once we get to the Jaguars, which we're about to, is all the different stats and percentages that they have here. Seahawks at 21, Falcons at 22, Jaguars at 23. So I'll just go ahead and say I think the Jaguars should be ranked ahead of the Falcons. I think the Falcons quarterback situation is unsettling a little bit. Michael Penix, We'll see. We'll see. Uh, Seahawks, I can get the argument that they could be ahead of the Jaguars. I wouldn't put them ahead of the Jaguars. Dolphins, probably in the same range as the Jaguars. And this is I'm trying to view this from a perspective, like an objective perspective, looking ahead at the 2025 season. I think the Jaguars will finish much higher than 23 where they came in, right? But objectively, when you're looking at the Jaguars, new regime, they have to come in and prove it. I understand that, but I do think objectively they should be ahead of the Falcons. I don't think the Cardinals should be quite that high up. I don't think the Steelers should be quite that high up. So those are the only major gripes I would have there. Again, objectively. Subjectively, I think the Jaguars, looking at where they are in the AFC South, they have a chance to certainly be a top 15 team, a playoff team, top 14 in the NFL. But at 23, we have a strength of schedule. We have projected average wins. We have projected chance to make the playoffs, projected chance to win the division, projected chance to win the conference championship, and projected chance to win the Super Bowl. Kind of fun to look at all those things and see how it ends up actually playing out. So Jaguars are at 23, and we'll dive into those numbers. I did want to highlight the Colts are right behind them at 24, and then you've also got the Tennessee Titans from the division at 31. So AFC South, you've got 12, you've got 12, 23, 24, and then the Titans bringing up the rear at 31. I personally don't think the Titans will be that bad, but we'll see. So the Jaguars' strength of schedule right now, according to this, is 25th, which means they have one of the easier schedules in the league. And of course, strength of schedule is not a very sticky or stable metric. It's not a metric that really, it's a metric that can be misleading. I'll at least say that. But the Jaguars finished third in the AFC South last year, so they do have the third place schedule. So some of that will potentially help them, right, in terms of the strength of schedule. But to me, it's really not a strength of or a schedule that I look at as like super easy. I just really don't see it that way at all, strength of schedule wise. So we've got Siri messing with me here. All right. So strength of schedule. You do have the Panthers, which helps, right? But you've got the Bengals, obviously the Texans twice, which is a playoff team the last 2 years, the 49ers in San Francisco, the Chiefs. You play the Seahawks here, which I think is nice. You play the Rams in London. Obviously, you play the Titans and Colts twice. Cardinals in Arizona. I don't think that's an easy matchup. I think it's a very evenly matched contest on paper, but in Arizona, that doesn't help. Chargers in Jacksonville. It's nice that they're playing here. You have the Jets, which again is from the third place schedule. You have at Denver. That's not going to be an easy game. And so you have the AFC West and then NFC West at Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think it's like a schedule that you look at and you say, well, that schedule is really going to help them win a ton of games. Maybe it's not the most difficult in the league, but again, strength of schedule, looking at it in June, can be very misleading. So maybe the schedule does end up being fairly easy. Maybe there's injuries along the way for Jaguars opponents. Maybe not. Maybe some of the teams on this schedule are actually much better than projected right now. Like, I think the Panthers could be a lot better than they're projected to be. I think the Jets, if they're able to play aggressive defense the way Aaron Glenn wants to and be a run-first football team with Justin Fields being a problem with his legs, yeah, I mean, there's some ways that this could not work out in the Jaguars' favor. The Raiders, right? Like Pete Carroll, Geno Smith. They got two superstars, in my opinion, offensive skill players, Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty. Pretty good offensive line, really talented defensive front. So you never know. But the Jaguars currently have the 25th schedule here, 25th hardest schedule here, or 7th easiest. At projected average wins, 7.9. So basically, they're projected to win 8 games. I think that's reasonable. I mean, I have them at 9 games, right? So that's 1 game difference. I could totally see that. I could totally see that end up happening. If some of the things that I believe in don't really manifest, like if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play his best ball, if the offensive line doesn't do very well, if the defense just doesn't take a large step forward, right? But I think they're going to win more than 8 games or 7.9 games. Projected chance to make the playoffs is 37.5%. So over 1/3 chance, right, to make the playoffs. I think it's interesting. You look at the Colts right behind them, and I think the Jaguars are in a far, far, far better situation than the Colts are heading into this season. The Colts' chance to make the playoffs is at 36.1, Jaguars at 37.5. I think that those two numbers should be a little bit wider apart. I think the Jaguars have a much, much better chance to make the playoffs than the Colts do. And so and the next one is projected chance to win the division. 24.8% chance for the Jaguars, 23.3% chance for the Colts. Again, I think those numbers should be much further apart. I actually think the Jaguars should be much closer to the Texans, and this is not objective. This is subjective. This is based on like my understanding of this football team and where I project them to go in 2025. Is that subjective, objective? I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But the Texans right now have a 54.5% chance to win, to make the playoffs, and a 40.8% chance to win the division. Again, I think that number is high. I really do. I think that the Texans have a really big issue on the offensive line, and that's something that until they prove otherwise, I'm going to have the Jaguars and Texans closer. I still have the Texans winning the division. I still have the Texans making the playoffs, but I think it's going to be closer than these numbers would imply. Projected chance to win the conference championship for the Jaguars is 3.1%. That's when you talk about percentages here and numbers that low, 3%, it's hard to kind of quantify all that. But I will say, I'm not going to predict the Jaguars before the season starts to win the AFC Championship or even make the AFC Championship when you have teams like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, potentially Cincinnati Bengals as potential playoff opponents, right? And yeah, the Texans, if they do have if their offensive line is a little bit better than it was last year, they'll be very dangerous. So, I can understand that, I guess. I'd probably put it a tad bit higher, but I wouldn't project them to win it. And then projected chance to win the Super Bowl, you just cut that in half from 3.1% down to 1.5, cut it essentially in half. Again, I'm not expecting a Super Bowl championship in Jacksonville in 2025 season, actually 2026 calendar year there, early February of 2026. But, I think they've definitely got a better chance to make the playoffs than this number probably suggests overall, and a better chance to win the division. Other than that, hard to argue a lot here with any of these projected chances, odds, whatever you want to call it. But just an interesting way to look at this, interesting numbers to look at, and just kind of digest here as got mandatory minicamp getting kicked off here soon. And obviously it's going to be a dead period after that from the end of this week until training camp starts. It's going to be a lot more of this type of talk. Looking ahead, taking a look around the web at what media outlets are saying about the Jaguars, etc. But rest assured, I do believe the Jaguars will finish better than the 23rd best team in the NFL in 2025. I think there's several teams that really make no sense being ahead of them at this point. But the Jaguars are a team, an organization that always has to prove it. before anyone's going to give them credit. And that remains true here today, even with a lot of confidence around the league, I think, in James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, and a lot of the players the Jags have. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.